coming to you live from Tennessee, from the east to the west. We are talking Cowboys everything. And you just entered
the Cowboy Zone.
Welcome back to another episode of the Cowboy Zone. I'm your host, Marcus Jones, the Bluff City Cowboy, coming to you live from Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. We have a great show for you guys. I see the comments are already lighting up. Got quite a few names there I don't recognize. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for supporting us. Before we get started, make sure you like, make sure you share, and make sure you hit that bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Bluff City Cowboys. My co-host, Lambo, is Cowboys Y'all. All right, guys, so I'm sure you all know we got a special guest joining us tonight. Got one of my longtime friends. We go back almost 25 years. Been there for me since day one. Very, very close friend. Got my guy, Coach Webster, joining us tonight. How you doing, Coach?
I'm good, Marcus. How you doing tonight, brother?
All right, man, I'm good. So, guys, if you hear me say "palp" a couple times, just ignore it. I try to keep it professional tonight, stick with Coach Webster, but sometimes it'll pop out when we get in football talks. So I see we got Starboy Payne in the building. Thank you for joining. Texas Bred Cowboys 83. Looks like a new name, so thank you for joining. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are. Jack Meeker, as always, thank you for your support. I saw you shared this about 8 times before we even started, so thank you for helping us get our engagement up. C. Burleson, what's up, man? Thank you for joining in as always. Shane Odom, one of our regulars, thank you for joining in. I didn't hear the news about Greg Knapp, so if you could let me know in the comments what happened, definitely appreciate that. I see him. I got my boy Rudd in the building. I know he's a Niners fan, so appreciate you joining in and giving us your thoughts tonight. Yeah, Ralph Campos. First day of practice was today. So today we're going to talk a little bit of defense. My guy, Coach Webster, is a defensive coordinator at a junior college in Mississippi. And as you guys know, he's been to a couple of training camps around the league, and we'll get into that in a minute. Once I get through all these comments, you guys are already starting to blow them up. So let me make sure I give everybody their shouts out before we get started. All right, we got DCU, Dallas Cowboys Uncensored tonight. I don't know if this is Charlie or Eric, so be sure to let me know in the comments. And I don't know what Dove Soap Webster means. I guess that's an inside joke. We'll save them for another episode. Hey, Jeff, as always, my guy Jeff, thank you for joining. Ralph Brandon's coming. I don't know if you guys know this, but Lambo has several kids that are playing sports right now, so he's bringing them home from practice. But he just texted me he's on his way home, and he should be here within the next 20 minutes. Yeah, we don't know the meaning of the word professional. You're right, Charlie. All right, Mendoza, appreciate you joining. And say you have to play Bird Gang Killer. Lambo has that. So we play it every once in a while, so we'll definitely get it in here. And I got my guy, Professor Matt Opap. This is one of the guys you got to watch. Matt Owen, Professor O. He really knows his football stuff.
Okay.
So, along with all of our viewers. So be sure to watch the comments because I know they're going to be coming in hard today. Oh, man. Yeah, that's really messed up. Riding his bike, got hit by a car.
Wow.
Definitely. All right, we got Alfred Rodriguez. Looks like another new name, so thank you for joining us all the way from San Antonio, Texas. DCU says this is the first half of the group. I don't know which one that is. I won't even try to guess. All right, I see. Last but not least, we got my guy Taiwan. Tyler joining us, one of our major supporters, man. Thank you for your support. Thank you for looking out. Thank you for watching. All you guys, make sure you keep the comments coming. I see we got about 20 or so people who've already joined us, and we only got 2 likes. So make sure to hit that button, get those likes up, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe. Jack Mika, yeah, thank you, man. That was a great episode we did with Jay Tuck, BJ Nix, and Professor O. You guys get a chance, go back and watch that one. And Coach Webster's going to talk a little defense today with us as well. So we're going to pretty much follow up and expand on all the stuff we talked about on Tuesday night. All right, man. I think I got all the house cleaning taken care of, Pap. Sorry about that.
No, it's all right.
I got to acknowledge my guys. I know you're right in the middle of your install with your team right now. So you got a lot on your plate. So we definitely appreciate you taking a few minutes and joining us on the Cowboy Zone.
Definitely appreciate you having me, Marcus, and I'm excited, man. I've been looking forward to this all week. I made sure we got the defensive staff out of the office tonight so we could have a little bit of quiet time, send those guys home. So I'm looking forward to a great show.
All right. So before we get started, guys, I know you're going to do it, but I just got to say it. Keep those comments coming. Keep those questions coming. Coach Webster can't get into too much detail about all the stuff he knows, but he has worked with Coach Quinn quite a few times and a bunch of other defensive coaches. So he can give us his insights based on what he thinks. He can talk a little bit about what he saw when he was there 2 or 3 years ago before COVID kind of shut everything down. He's a little bit in communication with Coach Quinn now, so he can't really talk about what was going on with the team right now, but he can definitely still fill in a lot of blanks for you guys who want some familiarity with the 4-3 under defense, as well as some of the players on this team and how they fit. All right, William Coulter, thank you for joining as well. All right, Coach Webster, give them a little bit of background about just who you are as a coach.
Okay. Well, first, like Marcus said, I've known Marcus for, I guess it has been about 25 years or maybe a little bit longer now. And football is what originally brought us together. We played high school football together at one of the greatest high schools in the nation, South Panola. Shout out
University of South Panola.
University. But beyond that, once I finished my playing career, coaching, I guess, was kind of my calling. It was something that I feel like I was destined to do. So I got my start coaching in junior college. I was at Southwest Community College. That's down in Macomb, Mississippi. I spent 3 years there. My first 3 years of coaching, probably 3 of the best years that I've had coaching because of so much learning and the knowledge of the game from all 3 levels. But I spent 3 years at Southwest as the defensive backs coach, and I also coached the outside linebackers there. Once I finished that 3rd year at Southwest, I got a phone call and I was offered the opportunity to come actually here to Northeast for my first stint at Northeast Community College. So I spent 2 years here as a defensive backs coach. And then the phone rang again, and it was Northwest Community College, who is near and dear to my heart still because I played at Northwest Community College. A couple of the guys that's in the chat right now, we went to school there together, so it's definitely a place that I love. So I had a chance to kind of go back home and be at Northwest. Spent 6 years there as a defensive backs coach, had a lot of success, was fortunate enough to win a national championship in junior college. So had a lot of fun there, coached a lot of good players. We'll dive into a little bit of that later, but between that Northeast stint and that Northwest stint is kind of interesting because I had a chance to coach 2 guys that was actually on the roster for the Cowboys in previous years. Daniel Ross on the defensive line for a couple of years, and Treston Deku, who I coached at Northwest as a corner. So it's funny kind of how things come full circle. And then as of 2020, I got a call, and Northeast called and offered me an opportunity to come back here to be the defensive coordinator. So we went through the 2020 season. It was COVID. It was a little bit of a condensed season, but we had a lot of success here. We finished the season 5-1, which was solid, not the ideal finish that we wanted, but defense played really well, created a lot of turnovers. Guys bought into the system. They bought into the culture. So I'm really pleased and I'm excited about what's moving forward. So that's everything as far as the junior college and my coaching experience that actually pays me and feeds my family on a daily basis.
All right. So Coach Webster, talk to us a little bit about just how you got involved with being in some of these training camps, because I know you've done several over the years. And just being a kid from Mississippi, coaching at a junior college, to get that opportunity is amazing. So
Right.
let us know a little bit about how you got those opportunities and what teams you got to do your internships with.
Okay. Coaching and I'm sure it's like most professions out there, it's all about networking. It's all about relationships. So my first internship came with the San Diego Chargers. I know they moved now, but came with the San Diego Chargers. And I got that opportunity because my college defensive backs coach, and I'm going to throw probably a lot of names out there, so I'll kind of try to tie things together without, going into too much depth and boring you guys. But my college defensive back coach, who coached me at Arkansas Tech, where Terry Rudd or just Rudd and I went to school together. His name is Greg Williams. So he was the assistant linebackers coach in San Diego. He called me up, asked me if I wanted the opportunity to come out there and work the training camp there. And it was a Bill Walsh minority internship. So I jumped on the opportunity. And so that was my first one, was in San Diego. And that was in 2014. I went out there primarily to work with special teams and defensive backs. Gave me, and I call him G-Dub. I know we're going to throw a lot of nicknames out in the show, guys. I'm sorry, but that's how I'm used to talking. So I apologize. I probably should be more professional, but G-Dub is how I know him, and Pap is how he knows me. So G-Dub and we got a chance to reconnect, coach football together again, coach some of the best players on the planet. So it was really, really fun then. So that was 2014. Now, fast forward, 15 goes by. I don't do an internship. 16 shows up and I don't do an internship. And so 17 shows up and I get a phone call from Scott Pioli, who was the assistant GM with the Atlanta Falcons at the time. And Scott said that he had talked to somebody in the front office in San Diego, felt like I did a good job out there in San Diego, and he offered me an opportunity to come to Atlanta. And so I did my first internship in Atlanta in 17. Worked with special teams out there and defensive backs. I got a chance to meet some great guys. Keith Armstrong, worked hands-on with him. Keith is actually the special teams coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. And I had a chance to work with Marquand Manuel as well, who is now the defensive backs coach with the New York Jets. So those were kind of the two guys I worked hands-on with Dan Quinn, of course, being the guy that was involved with everything. So I did that in Atlanta in 16 and 17. 17 and 18. In 2019, actually, I was invited back for a third internship with the Falcons. But because of the way our season was set up, I wasn't able to take that internship. And obviously, we know what happened in 19 in Atlanta with DQ there. So I did not get a chance to take that opportunity. And COVID affected everybody in the world in 2020. But I guess on paper and like we're doing right now, I was a part of another minority internship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It wasn't in person because of COVID, but we had a chance to do a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of chalk talks and things like that. So that was kind of interesting. It kind of got, I guess, all of us prepared for the world we were facing at that time, and made me a better coach because that's the way that I had to coach our players at the beginning of the COVID season. So, but that's it, man. That's my journey as far as the interns. You got the San Diego Chargers, you got the Falcons twice. And you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Okay. I just wanted you to put that out there so people know we're just not dealing with anybody. We're dealing with somebody who's really seen NFL training camps, which is what we're in right now.
Right.
And you've also had some extended experience with Coach Q and his time during the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah. And one of the coolest things about those internships, Marcus, and I know you hear the word intern, but in San Diego, as well as Atlanta, more so Atlanta than anywhere else. I coach those guys the same way I coach my players here. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it, it's not standing back and just kind of being behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So you're in every meeting, you're in the personnel meetings, you're in the position meetings, as well as when you get on the field. The same way that I coach my corners and safeties here, it was the same thing when you were out there coaching those NFL guys. So you get to build a relationship with the coaches as well as the players, and actually be able to get really hands-on and do what we love to do, which is coach football.
Yeah. So since you primarily work with defensive backs, that means you got a little bit more extended time with guys like DeMonte KZ and Keanu Neal.
Correct.
Right.
So as we go into those two guys, we'll start with Keanu. So when you look at him, the ability to go out there and coach him, it was fun. I know I look small on camera, but I like to pride myself on being a somewhat strong guy. So, I was holding bags and things like that for a lot of the players. And when Keanu comes up and it's time for him to hit a bag, I kind of backed away after the first few days of it. He's a big man.
And I know you're a competitive guy. So if you
right.
He really brought some heat.
Right, but he is, man. He's big. He's a force. He's a thumper, and he moves a lot better than people give him credit for. And that was my experience with him in Atlanta. I know he had the injuries and everything after I left, and that's kind of slowed him down as far as his on the field play in the last couple of years. But Keanu Neal's a rare talent. He's a rare talent for any team to be that big and that fast and to be able to play with the physicality that he plays with. He brings a different type of mentality as well as just physicality to the game.
All right. Before I go to my next question, Professor O asked this question a few minutes ago. He wants to know: are you a blitz all night guy? Or are you a balanced guy?
I'm a balanced guy, but I'm a blitz when necessary, based off of situations and I probably shouldn't tell this. I don't know who's watching, but if I get into a situation and things are moving fast and I don't have the answer right away, Owen, then I'm sending pressure. So that's kind of my fail safe is if I get caught and my mind isn't as clear as I like it to be, I've got about 3 or 4 safe pressures that I feel can hit home, but also not leave us out to dry in coverage that I'll go to for sure.
Okay. All right. So going back to Keanu Neal, Matt O put the comment up here about he looked huge today. What do you think about his transition to the linebacker position? Do you think that'll be a good transition for him?
I think so. The only reason, in my opinion, that transition hadn't happened earlier, maybe in his career, and this is my opinion, I don't have any facts behind any of this stuff, was just because he was playing the safety position at such a high level, and you don't move a guy that's doing that well at safety to linebacker just to do it. And so with the injuries and now him, going into Dallas, I think it gives them a chance to do something that he's been capable of doing. And I'm sure he's packed on, whatever it may be, 8 to 10 pounds or something like that.
But 10 to 12, actually.
Okay, so he's even bigger than that. But even when he was playing safety, he was big enough and strong enough at that time, in my opinion, to play wheel backer in the NFL. So that transition or that move of position, it really did not catch me off guard.
Okay. So in terms of him just as a player, what do you think he brings to this defense?
The first thing, in my opinion, is just going to be a physicality,
which is what we definitely need.
Yeah, I mean, and that's football at its core. Football is a game played by tough men, and I think that he's going to bring that, every single day, whether that's to practice and then, of course, on Sundays to game days, to where and the rules protect players now, but you still get to hit people in this game. And when you hit people on defense, you want to make sure that they know that they've been hit. And I think that's what Neal will bring. Can you put that comment again up by Matt? And I'll kind of hit on that really quick. But yeah, so you look at it, Deion Jones, who, in my opinion, and I was around Deion a lot. We spent almost every practice together in stretch lines, just talking, during my 2 years there. Deion is one of the better linebackers in this league, and I think that he's the prototypical linebacker that you see now, with the speed and the way the game is played now. You don't find a lot of Ray Lewis's, and you don't find a lot of, obviously, the Mike Singletaries and the people like that. Patrick Willis was probably the guy that started that, you know what I mean? Even though I feel like he retired early, but that type of linebacker that can run. So when you look at Neal and Deion Jones, I think that's what he's probably gonna be. It's gonna be a fast backer that can cover sideline to sideline, but also when you go to coverage, you're not a liability in coverage now. And you're definitely gonna get an advantage with him in zone coverage. And now if you feel like, all right, I can match him up on the tight end. I may not want to match a linebacker up on the tight end, especially the Travis Kelce's of the world, but you feel like you've got a chance matching him up on a tight end that can run and be fine in your coverage.
Yeah. All right. So a question that we get quite a bit on the Cowboys Zone, we are kind of wondering, we got a lot of linebackers who all kind of play between Mike and Will. Do you think Neal may be one of the guys that gets that green dot?
I think he could. The thing about the green dot in the NFL, and I could be wrong, and someone please correct me if I am, but I still think you only get one on offense and one on defense right now. And if I'm wrong about that, then correct me, because that's definitely would change my answer. I don't think he gets it because I don't think Keanu, in my mind, is going to be a 3-down linebacker for them right away. I could see him definitely being second, third down backer for him, whether he's going to be on the field first down versus 21 and 12 personnel big sets. I'm not sure because that green dot linebacker, that communication has to be constant throughout the entire game. And the average person, not anybody in this podcast, of course, because all you guys have great knowledge, but the average person doesn't realize how much communication happens between plays that backer gets before that mic shuts off. Mm-hmm. And to be able to get personnel, to be able to get formations, to be able to get substitutions, to be able to get not just one call that you're running, but your second and third call based off of formation, or if they don't give us what we're thinking they're going to come out in, that communication is really crucial, and you don't want to miss that. I know that's a long answer to a short question, Marcus, and I'm sorry, but it's a lot that goes into that green dot.
That's a great response, because that's something that the average fans don't know. We have a great mixture of people who watch us. So some people know exactly what you're talking about. Some people, this may be their first time hearing it. So it's always good to have that dialogue, and then you also have that knowledge and that respect from everybody. So it definitely confirms stuff for people who know it to hear from you.
Okay.
All right, I see we got my co-host joining us finally. So got to welcome in Lambo joining us. What's up, Lambo?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Lambo, how's it going, brother?
Pretty good. How are you?
Man, I'm great. How the kids doing?
Good. We had a great practice.
Awesome.
I think I'm more tired than they are. Out there coaching, and I'm trying to run around and show them the drills, and I'm starting to feel my age. I'm out there looking old, man.
All right, so Lambo, you came in at just the right time. Got Coach Webster here with us. The past 15 minutes or so, he's just been kind of telling us about his background, his history. So now we're really just kind of getting into football talk. So Lambo, if you got any questions, feel free to hop in. We just talked about Keanu Neal, and he was telling us about what he brings to the team. Let me ask you this question then, Coach. Since you say you think he's going to probably be second, third down type linebacker, who do you think will be the green dot guy?
In my mind, and this is obviously I don't know who's there, who's healthy, all the other things that go into it, but it's hard for me to imagine that Jalen Smith would not have it if he's healthy.
And the fans hate to hear that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys got to kind of think about it from a neutral perspective. At times, he's the guy that's played probably more snaps than anybody else. Experience, and that's something that you can't. And it's not just in NFL. I think it's in any job in the entire world. Experience is something you can't substitute. So when you have a guy that's used to making calls, a guy that's used to communicating, and a guy that at times has played really, really well. And he's not a liability on first down, and neither is he a liability on third down. It's hard for me to imagine that he wouldn't be the guy unless he just absolutely gets outperformed in camp, that he wouldn't be the guy going into the season.
Okay. All right. So going back to Keanu Neal, do you think there's any chance he goes back and plays some safety? Or you think
Yes.
he's gonna, okay.
Yeah, I do. I think that at least from my opinion and my perspective of what I've seen, I think that you are going to see some things defensively from Q that you're used to seeing, whether that's from Seattle or whether that's from Atlanta as well. But I think you're going to see some different looks, moving people around, getting people in different situations. So you may look at it and Keanu may be lined up as an apex wheel backer on second down, and we get a sack, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and long, and we don't want to substitute. It's very easy to take that guy, and now you can line him up, and you can play him at a weak safety, or you can play him, as a buzz player out there to number 1. You can do a lot of things with him without actually having to sub him and take him off the field.
All right. Can you explain what a buzz player is?
Yeah, so a buzz player is usually happens in cover 3. You can have buzz players in cover 4 and multiple coverages as well. But basically, when we say buzz, that means the flat. So you have a player that's not lined up in the flat to start, but he's inside and he buzzes out to the flat as the coverage expands.
Okay. Yeah. So I see we got a lot of guys agreeing. Star Boys podcast. Thank you for joining.
Star Boys.
We're going to have you guys on the show in a couple of weeks once we get training camp underway. So definitely looking forward to that. I see we got Riker in the building moving the chains. Thank you for joining. And Jack, you're definitely right. He's hefty enough to take on run blocks, especially at that Mike position, which is going to be very important in how that scheme is run. Got a question from Shane Odom. So he says, when you have a cornerback who is struggling, do you go back to the fundamentals or do you challenge him in a different way?
So Shane, if you would go ahead.
I just said good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I'm going to ask Shane if you would pop that question back up for me one more time, Marcus. And Shane, if you would, because this question kind of leads into another, elaborate just a little bit. Struggling as far as his performance the previous week, or struggling in the moment? Because I think that you approach things a little bit differently in those two situations. And if you want to specifically, Shane, I'll follow back up, but I'll kind of answer both from my perspective. I think that if you have a corner that's struggling in the moment, I'm talking about in a game, and whatever it may be, he's not getting to his spots, or he's not staying attached in coverage. I think that you've definitely got to go back to the fundamentals. In everything that you do, in my opinion, you've got to trust what you've been trained to do. That doesn't differ from us than it does, anybody in the military or whatever it may be. You train for a reason and you practice things for a reason. So when things get hairy out there, you want to definitely go back to your fundamentals. Now, if you got a player that has struggled the previous week, and as a coach, I think sometimes you have to ask yourself, is what I'm asking this player to do, is he capable of getting it done? You know what I mean? And this is something that I struggle with personally. I've got a press technique that I love and I believe in it. You know what I mean? And you couldn't convince me if you had Deion Sanders himself here that my press technique does not work. But I also have to be humble enough to understand that players aren't always able to execute it the way that you want it done. So you have to be able to compromise a little bit. Hey, this guy struggles when he's right on the line, so let me give him a little bit more vertical spacing. Or he may not be a pure step guy, so let me see if he can inch out and use his length versus trying to get hands on at the line of scrimmage. So and I think, and I'm kind of going through it here, but I think that's what DQ is going to bring to this defense that is going to give them a chance to be one of the best in the league, is the way that they coach and the way they teach and the way that they're able to adjust and get the best out of the players. Long answer, Shane, and I apologize. And if I didn't answer,
great answer.
Throw another one, and I'll try to dive in a little bit more.
Well, let me follow up since you already brought up Coach Q. Tell the people a little bit about what you think he brings to this team in terms of defensive culture or defensive. I'm trying to think of the right word to use here. the personality of the defense?
I think culture hits it on the head. I really do, Marcus, because when you think back, I mean, obviously, you had the Bears defense that was legendary, but outside of that, and I'm sorry, I can't leave Tampa Bay out when they were really good and the world wasn't used to the cover two schemes in those days. But outside of that, the Legion of Boom is the next best defense that's ever stepped foot into the NFL. You know what I mean? As far as the consistency and the way they did it week in and week out. And one of the things that if you notice about that defense, it was all about playing for each other. And I think that's something that people lose sight of at times, is that those guys out there, they're more than just the X or the Y button on an Xbox. You know what I mean? Like they're people. And you want to be able to motivate people, and you want people believing in themselves, and you want people believing in you. And Q is unlike many people that I've met that has an uncanny ability to relate to people and pull the best out of them. And I think it really starts with the respect that he has for his players before they have respect for him. They are grown men, and you have to approach them a certain way. And he's able to go down and talk to a D lineman and get the best out of him. Mm-hmm. He's able to push certain buttons because guys know that he has their best interest at heart. And when you go back to the Legion of Boom and you see the big plays, you see the interceptions, you see Cam Chancellor leaving people laid out in the middle of the field, but you always saw them together. It was what was the chant that they had? We're all we got, we're all we need. Those, like, they meant that, you know what I mean? And I think that if Dallas buys into that culture, into and I haven't heard many of Q's interviews, but you will, if they buy into having that brotherhood, I think that's what's going to allow his presence to be felt more than anything else.
Yeah, he looked good out there today. He's out there looking fly in the Retro 11s, out there working with Randy Gregory one-on-one. Yeah, you could tell he was just out there working with the guys. And like you said, you were talking about length earlier. A guy with length that's surprising a lot of people that I bet he likes is Nashawn Wright. That guy's surprising a lot of people in this camp.
And we're definitely going to get into that when we get to the rookies.
Yeah,
because I want to get Coach Webster's opinion on that. And thank you for bringing up Randy Gregory, Lambo. In the past, as Cowboy fans, we're used to our defensive coordinator kind of sticking to his position group. So if you guys remember Rod Marinelli, he coached the defensive line.
And only the defensive line.
And he gave responsibilities to anybody else who wanted them for everything else.
Right.
Then you look at like Mike Nolan last year, where you can tell just by the guys he brought in, he was focused on the defensive line. I know Coach Q is a defensive line guy. Is he going to be more involved around the defense in general, or is he going to kind of stick with what he knows?
I think that he's going to be involved on all three levels, but because that's his personality. His personality is relating to people. So he's going to be with the D-line, of course, but he's also, I mean, you look at it, we drafted 2 rookie backers, and he's going to want to spend a lot of time with those guys. And the secondary, being able to spread that love around, because he's got, he's familiar with Neil, and he's familiar with KZ, but a lot of those guys don't know him. So I think that he's going to be a guy that's going to be involved with all three levels. And I've seen that firsthand. I saw that for 2 years with them. I was working with the secondary, and it seemed like he was spending more time down there holding bags for me as I was going through drills as he did was coaching defensive line. You know what I mean? So I think that he, that's his personality. He wants to make sure that every guy knows he's important. Every guy knows what his job is, and that every guy's learning to execute those jobs and responsibilities.
All right. Got a question from Professor O. He asked you, for people that don't know, should a cornerback watch the wide receiver's head, hips, or feet?
Once again, Coach O, you or Matt, you probably can coach corners better than I can. My answer to that question is neither. If you put it back up for me really quick, Mark, and this will get very long. All right. So when you look at it, obviously the head moves, so you don't want to be able to go with any type of head movement. Hips and feet move, so you definitely don't want to see the feet. A lot of people, I guess, if you talk to like old school people, they always tell you watch the hips. but I'm more of a numbers guy. And so if you see the numbers, the reason being it's a shorter distance, especially when you're talking about making plays on the ball. If I've got my eyes on your numbers and now I got to take my eyes to your hands, it's a shorter distance. I don't get lost from being head down, neck down, and now I've got to get all the way back up because things happen in NFL so fast and those balls are in small windows. The chest area, and not only for that, but obviously for hand placement. If I'm looking at your hips, but I've got to jam a receiver, I need to see I need to see where my hands are going, right? I need to see what I'm able to hit. I need to be able to have a strike zone and a circumference to hit so I'm not shooting blindly.
Okay. Yeah. I've never heard that. I've never heard somebody say that before. So it's very interesting that you say that because we always all heard watch the hips.
Yeah, and if you would put Terry Rudd's comment up, he said hips and Matt, if you say hips, Matt, you're probably gonna be halfway right, but Terry Rudd is completely wrong. You do not want to watch. You do not want to watch the hips.
This is one of our friends, Lambo. So don't think we're down to the.
No.
Do you see Jeff's comment? Can we go into that one, or is that we got to leave that one alone? We don't have to touch it if you don't want to.
No, put it up. Put it
All
up.
right.
Look,
So,
I'm not getting paid. I didn't sign an NDA. I'm not getting paid by Dallas or Atlanta. So, Jeff, it's a tough question. It's a tough question because the NFL, whether it's Dan Quinn or whether it's Jason Garrett, the NFL is a league that at some point in time, if you coach in it, you will be fired. There's really no way around it. So to call him a fall guy, I don't necessarily know that, but I will tell you this. Hopefully it speaks to our fans, the type of guy that we're getting, that even though the results weren't there, that they stuck with him for as long as they did. And it is obviously the numbers and the wins and losses in those last 2 years. But for them to stick with him, it shows that, the players believe in him. Because every interview that you saw, the players always had his back. And as a coach, that's what you want. The players do it for the fans and the organization does it for the fans. But as coaches, you're doing it for your players and you want to make sure that those players have your highest regard. So I wouldn't call him the fall guy in Atlanta. It was something that I think we all knew was coming because of the record. But if anything, just take to heart that I think that when we get to this season, you're going to see guys absolutely flying around and playing their butts off for that man.
That's really good to hear. All right, let's William Coach has a question, and I'll probably try to rephrase it a little bit because the way he phrased it kind of gives you the obvious answer. But I think he's saying, do you want a corner who's going to be aggressive and go for the interception? Or do you want a guy who's going to kind of play tight coverage and just play for the receiver, not to catch the ball?
Well, you ideally want one that's going to do both.
Right.
But turnovers are everything. There's no substitute for turnovers. So, I mean, whenever you give the ball back to your offense, whenever you can take the ball away from their offense, that changes the game. And I think that's something that you're going to see from Q as well. They're going to preach turnovers. They're going to practice turnovers. Lambeau, you may have saw it. They may have started practice with a turnover circuit. And I have no idea, but I'd feel confident saying that's going to be a big part of what they're going to do. But, it comes back to just situations. You know what I mean? If you're playing zone coverage, it gives you a chance to have eyes on the quarterback, eyes on the ball. You can see the flight. You can go track footballs. And then sometimes when you're in man, and this may rub some people the wrong way because I hear it all the time from sports broadcasters to announcers. They're always talking about, guys, well, he didn't get his head back for the football and things like that. Man coverage is not designed for interceptions on any level of football. You know what I mean? If you do it perfect, you get a chance. But man coverage is designed to create tight windows and make sure that you don't get beat. That's what it's for. So, not getting your head back in man coverage is not the worst thing, especially when you're still not allowing them to catch footballs.
Yeah. Definitely a great point. We talk about that on the Cowboy Zone all the time. When people talk about a guy like when we do draft talk, we were talking, what's our guy from South Carolina, Lambeau?
McCormick?
No, the other one. Horn. We talked about Horn,
yeah.
and people talk about, well, Horn only got 2 picks in college. Horn was a lockdown man corner.
Right.
You don't expect him to get a bunch.
If you play a lot of man coverage, and I think that's something that people need to look at. And if you would keep Terry's comment up there, I'm gonna come to it in just a second. But if you look at it, the stats and everything, I wish someone would like really do a study on interceptions in college, because you have a guy like Horn. Well, he only had 2 interceptions. Well, what percentage of his snaps was in man coverage? What percentage of his snaps did he play match? And then you go look at a guy that may have a ton of interceptions, 8, 9, or whatever it is. Well, they may be playing a bunch of zone coverage, and they're a fire zone team, and those interceptions come off tips. They come off overthrows and things like that. So, yeah, zone coverage definitely creates more opportunities to be able to gain interceptions.
Yeah.
And to hit on what Terry said really quick, yeah, a DB that can create turnovers, but play the run effectively. And for me, playing the run effectively is tackling. Like, if you can find a DB that can get you the ball back, and now when they've got to make tackles, they can do that. Yeah. That is the ideal DB, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and great stat, Professor O. That's the reason why most teams are zone heavy. Only one team in the league play man more than 50%. Great statistic.
Yeah, that is a great stat.
That's why we call him Professor. He just brings stuff like this up all the time.
That is a great stat.
Yeah.
And if you look at it, I'd be interested to see that team that played man over 50% of the snaps. I wonder where they were as far as their turnover margin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of that stuff, it correlates, They may have been good on the numbers. They may have been, maybe they didn't give up a ton of passing yards, or if they played, cover 1 or 2 man, maybe they didn't give up big plays, but how often did they get that ball back, for their offense?
Yeah. Yeah, great point.
Anthony Brown can't tackle.
Yeah, so Taiwan, yeah, coach is definitely a knowledgeable guy. Definitely had to bring him in. If you guys remember the special team show I did a couple weeks ago, I went straight to him for all my information just to confirm what I was thinking. And during that conversation, I was like, man, we got to get you in front of the camera to let the people hear this knowledge firsthand.
No wonder you had so much special teams fire to bring.
Yeah. So, yeah, hopefully we can get Coach to come back a few times during the season.
No doubt, man. I love it. I wish I could get in more, man. I've only been in a few times as a spectator, man, but this is awesome, guys.
Yeah, so we'll set up a coach's corner sometime during the season. Once you get things rolling on your end, especially if you have a good season, and you can kind of take the brakes off.
No doubt.
Kick your feet up and come talk.
Yeah.
And we already know Brian. He's officially 1/4 of the Star Game podcast. We got BJ Nix. We got BJ Nix in the building as well, another guy with Star Game. So make sure you check those guys out as well. And see if I missed any other comments. Lambo, you got a question for Coach while I go through the comments real quick?
That one by Star Boys podcast, Marcus, and I'm still getting used to operating this on my end. But
I think Lambo was going to ask you about that.
Okay.
Too. Yeah. So it came right on time.
Okay, go ahead, Lambo.
He said, I feel like KZ has a lot to offer our team from a turnover standpoint. Do you think with the way Quinn does have a good history with lengthy corners, you think that's going to give him a little bit of a nod over Kelvin Joseph, the second round guy? In any way?
Which corners that we're talking about?
Nashawn Wright, we got in the 3rd round, 6'4", really, really lengthy.
Yeah.
He actually was Nashawn Wright himself actually compared himself to being a more athletic Richard Sherman, was what he said.
Those are some huge words.
They're big words.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at the young man's swagger.
Like Terry said a while ago. Our rookie defenders are ultra confident, and
I hated the pick, but all I seen was tweets about Nashawn Wright today and past breakups and the videos of him closing on coverage with that length.
Yeah. So with Nashawn, and I kind of talked to Marcus about this earlier. Coming out of Oregon State, and it's been a couple years back. I mentioned the name Treston Deku earlier in the podcast. I coached Treston in college, and he was there in Dallas for a couple of years. Now he was never a guy. He was a special teams player, and he was always battling. But Treston was 6'3". but he did not run a 4.39, I think is what Nashawn Wright clocked at his pro day or whatever it may be. So if you take a guy that's 6'4", which you haven't seen much of it in NFL at any point throughout history, you know, if it works out and now you've got this guy that can do those things, definitely that length, it becomes a problem, because you think about it, you know, those small windows, and you're going to hear that word come out of my mouth a lot. There are very small windows in the NFL because the quarterbacks are so good. The quarterbacks are so good. So, you know, you think about ball placement, the difference between especially your top tier quarterbacks. I mean, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott for sure. All of those guys, I mean, it's literally, you can take the ball and they may as well walk it and give it to them where they want it to be a majority of the time. That's how small the windows are that they create. So when you've got a guy now that, hey, I see where I want to put it, but I didn't expect a 6'4" wingspan to be closing that window down. It really does add a different dimension to what you can do. And to be 6'4" and to be that fast, and like you said, if he was closing the way that you want those guys to be able to do on that level, I think what you may see out of Nashawn Wright is a guy that hopefully can go outside and play corner. But kind of getting back to what you asked about earlier with Neal, he'll probably be using them in multiple ways. If he can line up in the slot and play in the slot some, but as well, I don't know how physical he's going to be, but he could very well be transitioning at some point to playing safety if he's rangy enough to do that.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead, Lambo. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, speaking of safety, what do you think KZ is going to bring to the safety spot?
Man, KZ, and he's not big. Lambo, have you been around him yet?
I haven't been around him, but I know he's about 5'9",
5'9" 5'10".
5'10".
Yep. So when I got to Atlanta in 2017, KZ was a rookie then, so he was kind of unknown kid out of San Diego State, and he was out there and he was flying around. He was making a ton of mistakes, and you had to correct a lot, but he was absolutely flying around, creating havoc around the football. And then as he progressed in his knowledge of the game and his training into year 2 and 3, and last year you saw it, he's a guy that finds the football. And, you know, I've seen a lot of guys in the NFL that, man, they're talented, they're fast, they're strong. They've got so many tools, but they never get around the football. They never cause a turnover. They never get an interception or create a fumble. KZ's a guy that he's gonna get to the football, and he's gonna cause some things to happen. Right. So the biggest thing about KZ, and I know Atlanta dealt with it, and is he's got to make sure he continues to control his strike zone hits, so that he's not getting targeting calls. He's been hit with a few of those in his career. But he's there, and that's what you want. Guys don't get targeting unless they're in the right spot per se. So
when I watch him play, all of his tackles are either right here or he goes straight to the feet, like nose dive.
He's a missile, man. He's a missile, and he's not very big. And hopefully he can stay healthy and his body holds up. But I think he's definitely a guy that you're going to see, because Q is so familiar with him and what he brings that they're going to find a way to get him on the field in a big time capacity.
Me and Professor O talk in DMs all the time, and he always tells me he's making a Pro Bowl. He guarantees KZ's making a Pro Bowl,
and I'm not going to doubt it one bit. I mean, if you watch closely what he did in Atlanta in a basically a depleted secondary last year for a guy that came in whatever round he came in, to be able to go and put that performance together. And at some point in time, I know he was leading the NFL in interception. I don't know if he finished that way, but at one point during the season, I know he was leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah, he had 7 picks that year.
So, and that's something that you don't think about a lot. Usually when you have guys like you just described, that's, hey, he's a missile, he's flying around, you're only thinking they're hitting. Well, yeah, he's hitting people, but dang, he just went and got an interception too. So that's what you want.
Right. Okay. Question from William Coulter.
Okay.
He wants to know, we already know Diggs is going to be on one side. I know we haven't really gotten the count, but just your initial thoughts. I'll make it a two-part question. If it's not a rookie, who do you think will be starting opposite him?
This is something.
Do you think a rookie has a chance to start day one?
I think it's really, really hard for rookies to start in the NFL. And I'm talking about outside of your rookie defensive lineman. You know, you may get a linebacker that can come in and be ready to plug and play, but in the secondary, those guys are so skilled. A lot of times rookies haven't caught up. You know what I mean? So I think that's really, really hard to ask them to be a starter. Now, to be productive, no doubt about it. You know what I mean? To come in situations and be able to play a certain amount of snaps, yes. And I hate to say it, but I honestly don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how it's going to look on the back end at all. You know, as Nation continues to progress, you know, the learning curve of it. Can he learn the defense, you know, good enough? And are they going to trust him to go out there? Because he didn't play a ton. Like he wasn't like he was an Oregon State starter for 4 years. Yeah. So how much football has he played? And do you trust this guy to go out there from day one and say that he's going to be your starting corner? I don't know that answer.
Yeah. Okay. Same with Kelvin Joseph. Not a lot of football in college.
Right.
Not a lot of experience between either of those guys, really.
Yeah. And I was able to actually get kind of a hands-on look at Kelvin Joseph. So at Kentucky, the opposite corner from him was a guy by the name of Brandon Eccles. So I coached Eccles in college, so I was able to go and actually watch some of them.
I knew I recognized that name from somewhere.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Yep, so I coached Eccles in college, and Eccles is with the Jets right now. So I was actually able to go see Kelvin Joseph, and if they drafted him that high, they had to have a really good evaluation on him. But from what I saw in my, like with my own two eyes out of Kelvin Joseph, I think that he's got a chance to be a really good corner.
Okay.
Heck yeah.
Sticking to the corner talk and kind of tying in what you talk about with Wright, Dallas drafted 2 6'4" cornerbacks in the draft this year. One was Nashawn Wright we talked about. The other one was Israel Mukwamu. Now, in the type of scheme you think we're going to run, are those guys solely stuck to being on the outside, or do you think they can play inside and kind of some big slot situation?
No, I think when you look at it, having big corners allows you to go do some other things with your nickel positions. You can take a 6'4" guy and put him at nickel or what is referred to by a lot of people as big nickel sometimes.
I use the term every week.
Yeah. So, you know, when you get into things like that, length becomes a big time factor in zone coverage. You know, and it helps in man coverage. It does when you're talking about getting hands on people. But at the end of the day, after you've attempted, and I say attempted because not a lot of NFL receivers get jammed anyway.
And plus in the slot, you can't get, they're not on the line of scrimmage.
Right. So, but outside of that, when you're talking about running zone, in my opinion, there's two things that you've got to have if you're going to run zone coverage, if you're going to be effective. Either you've got to be a guy that can cover a lot of grass in a very quick time frame. Like you literally, if you're going to be a middle field safety, like Earl Thomas, who was the best at it for several years, he's got to be able to get it out of the middle of the field and get to the numbers. And I'm talking about really quick. And Earl was able to do that, and Earl's not 6'1". You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or if you're going to be a cover guy, how else do you affect quarterbacks? Well, you affect quarterbacks by being in windows. And what better way to be in a window than be out there at 6'4", and they're trying to put a ball over your head, and now they've got to put air on the ball that they don't want. And now your safety has more time to get there. Your underneath cover guy is able to get there just because of the range and the length.
Okay. Great answer. And you kind of hit on DJ Dog, and thank you for joining us as always. He asked, what are some of the traits you think make a good slot corner?
You definitely want to be quick twitch because you're dealing with some of the fastest players on the planet. When you're talking about lining up in the slot and playing against fast guys like Tyreek Hill, or just guys that are really, really fast in short areas like your Julian Edelmans and those little receivers that, they may not go run a 4.3, but in this 7-yard box that we got right here, he's just as fast as Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? So You got to be quick twitch, and you've got to be intelligent. You got to be intelligent enough to understand when a receiver stems me here, he's giving me an inside stem. I need to eliminate these routes because if I'm trying to cover everything, I'm covering nothing. So smart guys in the slot, they help you out a lot more than just saying, oh, I got to take the fastest guy I can find. So those are some of the traits, in my opinion, that make a good slot corner.
Okay. That's a great answer. Another question, and I see we got Jay Tuck in the building. I appreciate you joining us, Cowboys fans only. Had me on the show a couple of days ago talking 4-3 under defense. So appreciate you stick your head in for a few minutes and join us here on the Cowboys Zone. Another good question from Shane Odom. Now, I know, Coach Webster, you run a lot of cover 3 as well. And
correct.
You've received a lot of influence from Coach Q. But what do you think your philosophy is kind of different from his?
So in Seattle, in Seattle and a lot of times in Atlanta, Shane, you saw a lot of the 4-3 cover 3 is what you saw a lot of. I base primarily out of a 3-4, and of course I'm coaching junior college. You know what I mean? So our guys are a little bit different than what Micah Parsons and some of those guys may be. But as far as a scheme, I'm more of a 3-4. I do like the middle field closed, being a cover 3 look. But I'm multiple as far as who is going to be able to add onto the rushes. In NFL, a lot of times, if Micah Parsons is going to play an outside backer, then they're gonna rush Micah Parsons a lot of the time. A lot. And I think he's capable of doing that. For me, Shane, it may be my outside linebacker. It may be my Will. It may be my Mike. And we're constantly replacing underneath zones with defensive backs. So a safety could be a hook player. A safety could be a curl flat player. A safety could be a buzz player. And it may not be quite as much pattern matching as what Q has shown and he's done in the past. A lot of similarities, but there are definitely some differences in the way that we scheme up our defenses.
Okay. And since you brought it up, can you just talk a little bit about the importance of the cover 3 and what Coach Q likes to do in terms of defensive scheme?
Yeah. So when you look at it, man, once again, it goes back to just how good offenses are, right? And what you want to be able to do and how you can affect the football. And that's something that Q preaches a lot is you got to be able to affect the ball. You got to be able to affect the ball. And when you're talking about affecting the football, it doesn't just mean getting sacks and interceptions, right? It's being in the quarterback's vision. Is getting him to pat that ball one more time than he really wanted to because he wasn't sure what coverage you were in or where this guy was going. So in cover 3, it allows you to not give up a lot of deep balls, at least on the outside. All right, you are a little susceptible down the seams at certain times, and that's why you see a lot of people matching verticals by the slots.
Yeah.
But now you can get into hook areas, you can get into the curls, and you can get into the flats. And it goes back to what I think it was Terry said earlier: got to have people that can tackle. Because if we can make them throw it in front and we can tackle it, then we've got a chance to be really effective.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lambo.
Oh, no, I was going to bring up another question from the chat.
Okay, Starboy.
Unless you were wanting to add to that first.
No.
But I thought it was a good question. Do you think Starboy's podcast put up? Do you think Parsons will have a similar role as Bruce Irvin did with the Seahawks?
I definitely think so. I think he could. And the reason being, and nothing against Bruce Irvin, I think the position that he played allowed him to make a bunch of plays, but that was also a position that the bulk of the thought process wasn't put on him. You know what I mean? And I think as a rookie coming in to be as talented as Parsons is, all right, we know that he's going to be really good for us for a long time. But between drafting him when we did and now needing him to play, and what's the first game date?
We play Tampa.
What's the date of that game? You know?
Probably September.
So you're talking
9th.
about literally
Early.
being 2 months away or less than a month away or whatever it is. Like, how much can we put on his plate and putting him into that kind of that Bruce Irvin position and responsibilities? I can use his athleticism and let him rush, which is going to create mismatches, in my opinion, in itself. And now when I'm asking him to get into coverage, it's more of your simple drops, right? I've got to be a curl flat drop, or I'm going to be a buzz drop, more so than asking those guys to think the way that you would ask Bobby Wagner in that defense to think, where, all right, I've got the back fast out. I've got to take 3 up and over. I've got to take, I got to exchange 2 and 3. So when you start getting into those complicated things that you're going to ask from, those different type of backers like Wagner, I think the safest thing, in my opinion, would be to put Parsons into that Irvin role and now let him play football without a lot of thinking and get the best out of him that way.
Yeah.
And they'll probably do something totally different, but that's my opinion.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. We had the same conversation on Jay Tuck's podcast the other week when we talked about when you look at like the Sam position, you can put a lot of athletes right there because it takes away the thought process, and all they got to do is go be athletes.
Right.
Rush the passer, jam the tight end, contain the strong side.
Yep.
You take a lot of stuff off their plate to just let them do what they do best.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have that Sam backer, and that's why, and I know we keep coming back to the same conversations, but that's why I think guys like Neal, who, and I know he's playing the wheel backer, but all of a sudden you go from having him on the field and you don't sub, because guess what? If he hasn't lost some of his foot quickness, you're in big nickel already. Yep. So now you can go and match him up on certain things and let him do those type of things as well.
Right. That great point. Yeah. And Jay Tuck, we got a couple of glimpses of training camp today, and we saw Parsons playing that outside linebacker. We saw Randy Gregory also playing some outside linebacker. So just like you said, Coach Webster, they're putting these athletes in a position to go get the quarterback.
Right.
Got some great questions coming in. We're at an hour, 2 minutes, Coach. Are you good? I'm
good. Yeah, I got time, man. My wife is en route right now, so she's driving. So I got plenty of time.
All right, these are 2 really good questions too. Try not to go too much in the weeds with them, because a lot of these guys know this stuff, but they want you to explain it to the guys who don't.
Okay.
And Matt O talked about pattern matching.
Mm-hmm.
Something we kind of bring up every once in a while here. But if you can just kind of explain what pattern matching means and break it down.
Okay. So I'll explain it, Matt, from a cover 3 perspective, which you can pattern match out of basically any zone coverage. So one of the things that we do here, and it's something that teams across the NFL do as well. So let's say that I'm a nickel right now, and I'm lined up on the slot receiver, but I'm playing cover
for you.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
All right. Give me a second. I'll go ahead and explain, and I'll try to.
Okay, so let's say I'm a nickel and I'm lined up on the slot receiver. So in my original in cover 3 scheme, lined up on the slot, I'm probably going to be a curl flat dropper is what I'm going to be, which means that I'm going to try to rob the curl of one and then rally to tackle anything into the flats. Okay. Now, when you start talking about, all right, I want to match now certain routes. Well, now as that nickel guy right there, if the number 2 receiver were to run vertical on me, all right, I'm going to match that vertical route. So that nickel would run with that vertical. Okay. So now let's say same drawing right there. You don't have to erase that.
Okay.
If you were to take that number 2 receiver and put him on an out breaking route.
This receiver over
no, same one you drew the line off.
Okay,
Yep. So draw him on an out now. So now what the pattern matching becomes is I've got to match those 2 routes, right? And that's where you get your pattern match. I'm going to match number 2 vertical, and I'm going to match number 2 out. And so in essence, we're turning zone into man to eliminate that one route. All right. Now let's say that the number 2, you can erase those now. Let's say that the number 2 receiver does not go vertical and he does not go out. Let's say that the number 2 receiver gives us a crossing route, or he runs some type of in breaking route. Now I go back to my zone principles, which is I become a curl flat player again.
So you kind of go like that.
Yes, exactly. So now I'm going to rob the curl of one, and I will rally back to the flat. So in essence, what it does, it gives you the best of both worlds. It doesn't allow your guy to always just have to be in the same spot. And it allows you now to be able to get more people on more verticals, which is the downside of a cover 3 scheme, but also be able to literally say, I'm taking away the vertical of 2 and I'm taking away the out of 2, and anything else will zone it off. And people pattern match a lot of different ways out of a lot of different coverages, but that's one way.
Right. And if he ran this route you were talking about, you got the wheel running curl flat, you got him running curl flat. So you got pretty much these 2 spots covered.
Correct. So in that look right there, that's what we refer to as the hook zones from those backers. So between your wheel and your mic, they're going to take care of the strong and the weak hooks. So with that guy coming on that route there, the mic and the wheel was sorted out between those 2 and take it. And you probably heard me say, putting a lot of thinking on guys as far as like 3 up and in. If that was a trip set, you don't have to draw everything up.
Okay.
But if that was a 3x1, and the reason that I think maybe they let Parsons play a little bit without thinking, there's so much that goes into it for like Bobby Wagner, where he's actually got to turn and run with number 3 on a deep crossing route. So now he's matching that pattern, versus thinking.
So that'd be this guy, right?
It would be if it's coming from you've got a 2x2 set there. It would need to be a 3x1 set.
I won't change it then. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, it would come from the number 3 receiver, and it would be going to your mic or your wheel backer.
So basically, if I shifted this tight end to this side.
Yep, and ran that deep over route from right there, now your backside backer in that picture is actually your mic. So that you would let it bypass the wheel, and you would let your mic take 3 up and over.
Okay. All right, man. Great question. Great breakdown. I hope you guys understood what he was saying. I wanted to make a graphic because I knew, just knowing our fans and our viewers, I knew you guys would get some of those in the weeds questions. And I wanted to make sure I had a graphic up here that I can at least kind of show what he's saying. So great question. And we had another one. Let me go back up. Oh, DJ Dog asked the question about the Tampa defense.
Okay.
Why were they so successful in shutting down crossing routes in the playoffs?
Man, Tampa's defense, dang, it just slipped my mind. The defensive coordinator,
I can't even think of it either. That's why we're
Todd Bowles. Yeah, so Todd Bowles did a really good job of bending but not breaking on defense. If you go back and you look at it, a lot of people, you see Tampa in all of these different fronts, and they've got people standing up and they've got people all over the place, but majority of the time they're rushing forward. And in the playoffs that I watched, they did not blitz often at all. So a lot of their stuff was matching and what I call cutting crossers. So they ran a lot of cover 2 man, more cover 2 man. And this is just me watching them. I don't have any breakdowns, any data, but I think Tampa ran more cover 2 man in the playoffs than I've seen run in a long, long time. And they had 2 really good safeties. And Antoine Winfield Jr. I wish we had him.
If you would have been here last year, you would have heard us screaming every week.
So they utilized their safeties in a really smart manner. They trusted their corners. So when they ran cover 2 man, a lot of times you could call it 2 man, but it was really cover 2 cut, which means that on those crossers, your safeties that are lined up on the hash, when they got a crosser coming from their side, that safety cut the crosser right away. So you didn't have a nickel or a slot corner chasing a crosser all the way across the field. Like that crosser was running right into the safety. So they cut the safety on the crosser, and it caused a lot of people so many problems. It literally, Green Bay had no answer for it. Aaron Rodgers was still trying to throw the crosser, and Whitfield and the other safeties, they were eating it off the cob.
Yeah, definitely. Man, a great breakdown, great question.
Yeah,
guys. And
it's awesome.
Like you guys said, I feel like I'm in football camp. I talk to this guy all the time. Like,
Look, William, I'm gonna be there in about 2 weeks, man. So you're more than welcome to come join me if you want.
yeah, if you're in the Mississippi area, be sure to come down there. You can come watch. Coach really knows his
Coach,
stuff.
he can come coach. I'll take another hand for sure. I'll send him the playbook. He can start learning it now.
Hey, now you send me a playbook, Pap, I'll look at it. I love stuff like that. I can't teach guys technique, but I can point stuff out like that. So yeah, and this is just for you. I love stuff like this, but I don't like to bother you because I don't want people talking to me about accounting all the time. I know you live and breathe football, so I don't want to just hit you up, hey, Pap, let's just talk about cover 3 and
no,
stuff
look,
like that.
man, I love it because I mean, believe it or not, I take so much. I try to take so much from everybody. So, like the questions that are being posed right now in the chat, they're challenging me as a coach. So I'm taking this time actually to try to make myself a better football coach and put myself in some of these situations and some of these thought processes that these guys are posing. And now I'll probably sit in here for another 2 hours after the podcast and start drawing up and going. Now I'm going to have to go back to my cover 2 cut and make sure that I've got it the right way. So, this is awesome, man.
I think got Boss Hog in the building.
Oh yeah. Hey, that is my guy right there. That now look, if you want to bring another defensive coordinator in, I know we're throwing nickname Travis Sanford, Bossy. He's one of the best, man. When you're talking about molding and developing young kids and getting them ready to go on, he's one of the best. So shout out to Boss Hog.
Yeah.
Man, for real, you probably brought the most knowledge of any guest we've ever had.
Yeah, this is what we love to do. Like Shane Odom said, we don't just talk about the team. We try to give an understanding of what they're doing. Lambo and I, we hate hot take podcasting. We don't want to just sit here and talk about what Coach X said in the
right
in a presser, or when Jerry Jones shoots out stuff like that. We like to talk about what the team has and what they're gonna do, whether we're right or wrong. So yeah, we're at hour 12 right now. We got so much stuff we can hit on. We haven't even talked about the rookies yet. I guess we'll go to the rookies a little bit.
Okay.
Buster. So let's start off, and you've been talking about them the whole show, all of them pretty much. Let's talk a little bit about our first round pick, and that's Micah Parsons, and just let us know a little bit more of what you think he brings to this team.
And I was watching the draft. I was watching it closely, and I think that if one of the 2 corners had been there, that Dallas would have definitely taken one of those 2 guys, which was definitely a need on the defense. But I do think that they had a plan, and they went and got the next best defensive player in the entire draft. 6'3", 235, 240 pounds, guy that can run. He's shown the ability to go and create pressure off the edge. He's lined up at the Mike and the wheel backer position. He's a big guy. So like you're talking about tackling NFL running backs, which is a load in itself. You're going to need a guy that can stop that push. I think that's what Parsons is definitely going to be able to bring. And the thing, the only question that I have, and I don't know him, and I didn't watch a lot of Penn State. Of course, we watch a bunch of the SEC down in Mississippi. Is like, what type of attitude does he bring to the game? You know what I mean? So that type of thing, and a lot of that stuff with DQ's defense is going to come back to not just what you're capable of doing, but how you do it and what type of mentality you bring to it and what type of attitude you bring to the field as well. So I'm really excited about Micah Parsons. You look at him mixed in with the other linebackers that we have, and it's shaping up to be a really good linebacking core.
Yeah. Now, I was going to go in order, but since you already talked about linebackers, let's go to the other linebacker that's kind of been the buzz.
What, Charlie's favorite?
Everybody, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, look, I hate to be a bandwagon guy, but he may be my favorite too, from a diversity standpoint, and
talk about that.
I went back and I looked at Jabril Cox's film from North Dakota State, a guy that came in and into college after playing quarterback in high school. So, you know, you look at it and then all of a sudden he gets on, well, it's North Dakota State. They're the FCS, and yeah, they've got good teams, but do they have like top tier players? Well, he goes to LSU, and all of a sudden, if he had been at LSU for 4 years, he probably would have got drafted last year. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. I think that he's a guy that brings so much diversity to that position. You know what I mean? As far as, yeah, he can definitely play the run, but now any type of zone coverage or matching him up on things that he'd be able to run with. He's a guy that's definitely been around the ball in his career. He was around the ball at LSU, but if you go back to the North Dakota State film, I think he averaged about 4 interceptions a season, you know, playing linebacker, which is a lot. He's had a few interception returns for touchdowns, which is a lot. And then he's sitting there at 6'4", 230 pounds and can run. So, you know, there's definitely a trend there when you're talking about the second and third level, which are long guys that can run. And that's, you know, I think that fits definitely the scheme that you're going to see Q put in place.
Yeah. Let me ask
you. I really like Jabril Cox, man. I really like him.
Yeah, when we took Nashawn Wright in the 3rd round, I was actually so heated at that point because I was thinking Jabril Cox is still on the board. But then we still got him in the 4th, and I was like, okay, all is good. I'll just pretend those picks were swapped.
Yep.
No. Yeah. I got 2 questions for you about Cox before we move on.
Okay.
First question. Shoot, I lost my first. Oh, yeah. So we got a bunch of linebackers. We got the 1st round guy. We got Van Der Esch. We got Jalen. We got Keanu. How much do you think Cox may touch the field this year?
I think it's going to be a good bit because I think you're going to see a lot of situational things with these guys, you know, because defensively, people have started to put as much emphasis on the defensive substitutions as they have the offensive substitutions. You see offensive guys running in and out all the time. And a lot of people, well, you got base and you got nickel. But I think you're going to start seeing, you know, big nickel packages. I think you're going to see a good bit of dime. I think that you're going to see a base defense, but I also think you're going to see another unit of base. I think you're going to see a situational base at times. What I mean by situational base is end of the half where, you know, all right, I don't know what they're going to give us right now, but we definitely want to have the most athletic and fast guys on the field without putting dime out there. I think you go and you look up and you've got guys like Jabril Cox and you've got Keanu Neal as your Sam and Will backers, and now you can take care of anything they throw at you on that 1st and 2nd down. Okay. So, you know, I don't know how he's doing in camp. Obviously, you got
the first day, so we don't know.
Yeah. So you got to progress and you got to learn and you got to get better. But I definitely think that that he's a guy that could potentially help.
Okay. And I see Professor O had to leave. Thank you for the great questions and comments, man. If you guys want to hear more of what Professor O says, make sure you go follow Star Gang. He's on there all the time, shooting out these great facts. And also Star Boys Podcast, another great podcaster who joined our comments tonight. Make sure you check him out. He said he had to go as well. Second question. This one kind of started a lot of debate around the Cowboy Twitterverse. Some of us believe that in certain packages, you could play Jabril Cox as your strong safety. What do you think about that?
Yes. In my opinion, if he's not going to be your middle field safety, and I'm talking about the guy that's taking care of the post, if he's not that safety, if you would reference what Keanu did a lot in Atlanta and what Cam Chancellor did in Seattle, I think that Jabril Cox, I think his combine numbers were much better than Cam Chancellor's was from a running standpoint anyway.
They compare very, very similar to Derwin James, who's the safety at with the Chargers.
Right. So yeah, I think that you could definitely see that. Now he's 6'4", 230 pounds, and it doesn't necessarily become, well, can he run well enough to do it? A lot of that stuff comes with the efficiency of movements. He's getting digs in the middle of the field, or he's getting post digs. Can he move well enough the way that a safety moves and not a linebacker moves to be able to close those windows? So speed doesn't always correlate to ability in certain situations.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true, but I just still think in limited situations, if you're asking him to be like a buzz guy or a curl flat guy,
Yes.
I think you could put him in there, especially for teams running like a 21 personnel.
Yeah.
And they're not going 11, where it's
Right.
a wide receiver, or 12, either one. I think he'd be a great safety in those situations. Brian asked a question about Tristan Hill and his injury. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Brian? What you mean about him and his injury?
Probably if he makes the team.
Yeah, I think that's what he means.
If so, I mean, it might hurt him. He was already, probably gonna be battling.
Yeah, and you don't have to answer that question, Coach Webster. We'll go to another one of our defensive players, another intriguing guy, and this is Osa Diggy Zua, 3rd round pick out of UCLA. Kind of an undersized guy, 6'3", 380. We all pretty much expect him to just be penciled in as only 3 tech.
Right.
Maybe play some 5. What do you think about him?
I like him. I went back and pulled his stuff up today. I like his motor more than anything. At least what he showed in college, his motor seems to run. And planning the pack up there, he was able to push some people around that he won't push around in the NFL, of course. But one thing that's really interesting to note, and hopefully this coaching staff sticks with Dallas for a while, and you can kind of see some trends, is this guy was a wrestler in high school. Yeah. And if you go back, that's one of the big things now when these guys and these scouts are going back to these guys' high school days and things like that. Finding wrestlers has been really, really big, especially on your front, both offensive and defensive linebackers as well. Yeah. And I think Parsons may have been a wrestler in high school as well. But they're finding wrestlers and guys that are used to being into those type of combat zones. So, I mean, I like him. I like his motor. I think you're right. I think that he's going to be penciled in possibly as a 3 technique. I don't think he's strong enough to hold a point being a nose in the NFL. Yeah. With so much, basically 600 pounds coming at you every play. I don't think he'd hold up in there, but as a 3 technique, and hopefully he can show that motor and let it run, and he possibly could give us something on the pass rushing spectrum.
Yeah, that's definitely what he's known for. And I see my guy Mendoza going all the way to the 6th round on us. He wants to ask about Israel Mukwamu. Coach, I don't know if you had a chance to check him out.
I did not. So my knowledge on him is very, very limited. I'd be interested to see what you guys think about him. But I don't know a lot about Mook.
Well, for me personally, one of my favorite corners. Lambo, you want to talk about him?
No, I was just going to say I like him, but like you've said before, his shot at making this team is going to probably have to be at the safety position just because of the depth we have at cornerback.
Yeah. But he's 6'4", about 210. He has good feet, but to me, his hips look stiff.
Okay.
And that concerns me about him at the cornerback position. But like you said about the safety position, he could probably make that transition, and that'll be his easiest path to the team.
Right.
All right. So I guess going back to Tristan here, he wants to know, just when you see a team and you see guys like Osa get drafted, and you got Gallimore from last year, and Hill is hurt right now. We don't even know when he's coming back. Do you think they hold a spot for him, or do you think that kind of hurts his chances of making that final cut? You think they hold a spot for him?
Are you asking me or Lambo right here?
Well, I think they wanted your opinion.
Okay. But it's hard to hold spots in the NFL if you're not established as that guy. You know what I mean? Like if Randall Gregory went down or whatever may happen, they're going to hold spots for him. You know what I mean? So, it is so competitive on that level. Guys are, you'll have guys that are twisting ankle in an NFL training camp, and they will literally go into like PTSD mode because they're so afraid, that they won't make it. And that's just how competitive it is. So it's really hard to hold spots, but at the same time, you got to go out and you got to compete every single day because things change so much. I mean, you take Nation, who Lambo was talking about earlier. He had, I'm guessing he had a really, really good day today. If tomorrow and Saturday aren't as good, like the whole vibe will change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes I want to be really careful with expecting too much out of people too fast, because there's such a big learning curve, and there's such a training that is necessary to get these guys ready to play. A lot of these guys, you know, they're coming in, and some of them have only been a starter for a year. Some of them may have played in schemes that are totally opposite of what they're about to enter into now. They're going to have so much on their plate, not just from a player perspective, but a professional perspective. So, you know, expecting a lot, and I'm really talking about, you know, more so your third, fourth, fifth round guys. If they paid you in the first round, you need to go earn your money. Yeah. But those other guys, you know, it takes time and it takes development. And I think people lose sight of that at time because everybody wants instant gratification, and sometimes it takes a while. Richard Sherman wasn't a great corner in year one in NFL. Yeah. And, you know, he was a 5th round pick, and Cam Chancellor was a 5th round pick, and Byron Maxwell was a 6th round pick. None of those guys just walked in from day one and were ready to play. They all had to learn to play it. They all had to basically put all the tools into their box that allowed them to go be great NFL players for their time. So, you know, just I think I want to be careful with expecting too much out of people too early.
Yeah, and just adding on what you said, when fans like us look back on the Legion of Boom, we always romanticize it like they just all came out of the womb and were great.
Right.
That didn't happen overnight.
No.
Had to come in a couple years in jail.
Yeah, exactly. They built that thing, and they went through a lot of growing pains. I mean, before they were the number 1 defense in the league, 3 years earlier, I think they were ranked like number 27 or 28 or something like that. So it takes some time, and that's why I get excited about guys like Nahshon Wright and Osa and Jabril Cox, who are later round picks but are talented, because and I'm not trying to compare anybody to Richard Sherman or Cam Chancellor by that stretch of imagination, but Sherman was a 5th round pick, and Cam was a 5th round pick, and Bobby Wagner, who, you know, people, I think anybody that's worth it definitely tell you he's one of the top linebackers in his league, and he's been one of the top for several years. He was a 2nd round pick. Yeah. So, you know, that thing, it didn't happen overnight, and guys have to learn, they have to develop, and they have to get better. Nobody can be the same player that they was in college, because you're not going to be good enough to play in the
NFL. And DJ Dog asked a question about, do you have a background in recruiting and scouting? I know you have a extensive background in that, but talk about your background in that, and then do you ever like pound the table for a guy? Like
to
get them in.
Yeah, well, yeah. So when you look at it, you've got things, and I'm the same way. And I know I'm sitting down right now, DJ, but I'm 5'9" on a good day with some shoes on. But you know, when I go out recruiting, I want all the corners that I coach to be 6 foot and up. So, you know, there are things that I definitely look for when I'm scouting and recruiting players that I believe in. And then there's guys that I've coached in the past that not other people believed in, but I saw something in them because, you know, whatever it was, I saw him do something in person, or I saw him make a play that wasn't on his highlight. So, yeah, I'm going to fight for those guys. And then once I get them, I got to do the same thing that Dan Quinn and the rest of the coaches do. Now they got to go coach them, and they got to make them better. And they got to do that every single day. So, we recruit, and you definitely want to stand on the table or pound the table for the guys you believe in.
Okay. I see we got my guy Lee Williams in the building saying he wants to talk
okay. I see you, Lee.
Yeah, you might want to go to another podcast for that time. and I don't know if we said this at the beginning, but Coach Webster is a Cowboys fan.
No doubt about it.
I didn't know that yet.
Born that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And J Tuck coming in, because me and used to have this conversation already all the time, because when you were playing football, I can remember you always kind of feeling upset because people look down on you because you were the undersized safety.
Right.
But as soon as you got into coaching, you would put down a corner under 6 feet in a heartbeat. So now, let us know why this is a necessity.
Okay, so me being 5'9", and it kind of goes back to to the question earlier that DJ had was I'll pound the table for a 5'8", even 5'7" guy. I had a kid that I coached 2 years ago that was literally 5'6", and I believe 5'6.5". I believed in him, and he was an All-American, and he's playing at the University of Houston right now. So he's a really, really good football player. But yes, when I go out and I look, and it's like anything else, I definitely want a 6-foot guy, because those 6-foot guys don't have to fight those same struggles that the 5'8", 5'9" guys have to fight sometimes. And they're longer, they're more rangy, and God made me 5'9", and I thank him for it. But if I could ask him for the favor over again, I'd ask him to make me 6 foot. I have no shame in that.
Yeah.
So just big corners just allow you to do more, and you got to think about who they're facing. Yeah. I mean, you look at it, name the top 5 receivers in the league, and I'm talking about like big time receivers. And I know Tyreek Hill's an exception, but name one of them that's 5'9" outside of Tyreek Hill. Yeah. You got DK Metcalf, you got Julio Jones, you got Keenan Allen, you got Diggs, you got
Mike Evans.
What's Adams, my guy in Arizona now? DeAndre Hopkins. It's a big man. And I think that's something you got to remember too. When you make that transition from college to NFL, these are men, and like these are the best athletes, and these are some of the strongest men on this planet. So size definitely is a factor.
All right, let me ask you this question, because you brought it up, and this one is going to week 1. We brought up the name Mike Evans. When you look at our corners outside of Diggs, you got Anthony Brown 5'11", Jordan Lewis 5'10", Boss Man Fat 5'11". Do you let those guys match up against Mike Evans, or do you let 6'2" Diggs kind of shadow him?
I think you let your best cover guy cover their best guy, regardless of size.
Okay.
And the size only becomes a factor, when you're talking about going up for the football. And the hardest, and it goes all the way back to maybe the second or third question we put up as far as looking back and not looking back. Yeah. If you're in man coverage and you're running with the guy, and I'm 5'9", so I'm in man coverage, I'm dialed in, I'm focused on my coverage, and it's time for me to get my head back and find the ball. Mike Evans is 6'4", he's got an advantage right now. Okay. But if I'm in zone coverage and I'm off and I'm seeing the quarterback throw the ball, I can see the flight of the ball, that changes the whole dynamic. Now you're 5, you drafted that 5'9" guy or 5'11" guy or whatever he is. I'm sure his vertical is going to be up there too. So now we got a chance for us to both go up, and now that really becomes advantage defense in my mind at that point. It's really hard to make plays in man on big guys like that, but in zone, you kind of equal out the playing field a little bit.
Definitely. Okay. That's a good question by Terry he just put in there.
Yeah, let's put this question up. Don't give him the big head now, Bob.
It's all right question.
But yeah, good. It's a good question though. What is it like to coach college athletes versus NFL athletes?
I think it's twofold. I coach my guys here the same way that I coach those guys in San Diego, in Atlanta. There's nothing different. The actual call of the play may change, but from a technique standpoint, from what we demand of them with the small details, whether that's eye discipline, whether that's hand placement, whether that's your footwork or whatever it is, it's all the same. And now in college, obviously you're coaching young men that you put on scholarship. So you've got more control over those guys. You know what I mean? So I think the thing that goes into the NFL is you're coaching men, and it goes back, in my opinion, what makes DQ a little bit special is the ability to relate to men as men. One of my guys, if he makes a mistake and I come down on him hard, well, guess what? He's got to show up and he's got to go get that corrected, but I'm not going to necessarily come down on a guy that's been in the NFL for 6 years the same way I would this guy that's, about to play his first college football game. So from a physical standpoint, don't coach him any different. I think the biggest thing is really the respect and the understanding that these are definitely men that you're dealing with on the NFL level.
Okay. And
the guy and the kid I had a few years ago that the Jets drafted out of Kentucky that was opposite of Kelvin. I moved him from receiver to DB in like week 2 of camp. And after the second day of me coaching him, because I had to go out there and actually catch him up, so we were one-on-one, I told our staff at that time, this guy could go and he could test for an NFL team right now, and he'd be on par with anybody there. So there's not a lot that changes from I can run, I can jump, I can catch standpoint. It goes into the details of being a professional now.
Okay. What round did he go in, by the way?
He went in the 5th round.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mendoza asked this question. How do you approach a cornerback that's handsy? Is that something that's fixable?
Yeah, we do a lot of things in that standpoint, and guys are still searching for ways. I mean, you go as far as putting their hands behind their back in certain drills. I've gone as far as going out and buying boxing gloves and putting them on guys like in one-on-one so that they can't grab receivers. I think guys that are handsy, a lot of times it goes back to lack of confidence in yourself. You got to trust yourself, and that's right catcher mitts or whatever you can put on their hands so they can't grab a jersey, to try to teach them that, look, you don't have to grab and pull that guy. All you're doing now is getting us, behind the 8 ball with a penalty when you're good enough. And if you trust your training and your technique, you can cover that guy without getting handsy. So yeah, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine, which is handsy DBs.
Yeah. Got a couple more questions, Coach. With an hour 37 minutes, I don't want to.
I didn't even know about it. I didn't even know about what Jeff just brought up.
You familiar with this one up out?
Yeah, right. I am.
Well,
so
Jeff did his homework. Tell us about Queen's Navy SEAL training.
Yep. So it's not really the players don't go through the Navy SEAL training, but they do spend time with the SEALs, and it goes back to that brotherhood. It goes back to that culture of understanding that what I do is for you, because I know what you're doing is for me. I've got your back, and you can trust me. And Navy SEALs, obviously, they put their actual life into each other's hands. And I know football is still just a game, but it goes back to just that regard for each other. And when you playing with a guy, whoever it may be, the guy that's in front of you, the guy that's beside you, and you wholeheartedly trust that next man, everybody now can just go play free and do their job. You'll see certain guys, and it still irks me, when you see the camera and a team makes a play, they catch a touchdown, and you see the DBs pointing at each other, and they're doing this, and they're yelling and all that stuff at each other. That's not what you want on your team in any capacity. If they scored, you go get it fixed. But at the same time, that, hey, I can trust that guy over there to do his job, and kind of the saying goes, I can do my job because my brother does his, and my brother can do his job because I do mine. Yeah. And that's defense in essence. If you're a B gap player, be a B gap player. Don't go to the A gap. Trust that guy that he's going to do it.
Yeah. And last year, one of the biggest problems that we saw in this defense, a lot of guys got scrambled and they started playing hero ball.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You see a guy who is supposed to take on the A gap, and he'll spin. You know who I'm talking about. Everybody who's watching. You see a guy that's supposed to spin the A gap, he'll spin out to the B gap, or you will see a guy who's supposed to contain, and he'll dip inside of the tight end instead of staying out and holding his spot. We saw that on tape a lot last year.
Yeah.
And I hope that's something we can see Coach Q correct.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And sometimes it goes to guys not trusting each other, and you also want to be able to downsize some egos. You know what I mean? Guys won't. Well, I've got this incentive on the line, and I want to take this chance to go make this play. Those guys that are doing it for each other, the biggest thing is making sure that they're brothers and they uphold that standard on that defense.
Yeah. All right. We got one more defensive draft pick. Of course, our first 5-6 picks were defensive guys. One guy we haven't talked about a lot tonight, and that's the big defensive end from Iowa, Chauncey Gulstan. What do you think about this kid, and what do you think what type of role do you think he'll carve out on this team?
I think he's intriguing. I did not watch a lot of Iowa as far as seeing them play on Saturdays, anything like that. But just looking at him and then seeing some of his measurables, D line is going to be a position that's going to be crucial. And is different than the other positions because of the rotation. I mean, of course, you're going to have Gregory, and you're going to have some mainstay guys that you want, but you roll so many defensive linemen in. And that's why I was excited to see Osa, in college, a guy that already has a motor, because guess what? He may only play 2 snaps in a row, if that, or he's only going to come in for 1 snap. And then, he's basically coming back out sometimes. So having the ability to roll defensive guys in that can play with intensity, that can play with the motor, and then have a physicality about themselves. I'm kind of interested to see what he's able to bring to the table.
Okay. Now, when I look at Chauncey Gulstan, I see a guy 6'5", 275, 280. Do you think they kind of keep him at the end spot? Or do you think they try to put about 5-10 more pounds on him, playing some 3-tech or 5-tech?
I think right now he's going to be a defensive end. I don't think that weight, unless they told him on the front end, after the draft that, hey, we want you coming in back at this weight. If he's in camp right now at 275, he's gonna play at that weight, because he's not going to be able to pick up. They're out there, they're busting it right now, and so anybody that has weight, they're going to be hard pressed to just maintain it. So he's definitely not going to go pack on pounds right now. So I think that he will be a defensive end.
Okay. Good question from the Lunatic. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Love City Cowboys, Lambeau's Cowboys, y'all. Now, Pap, I remember when you played, you were a headhunter. I mean, you talk about you were 5'9", but you put every bit of that 5'9" into a receiver or an offensive lineman. or running back. I can tell you some stories about we used to do field goal team, and
I'd line up 15 yards away from you and get a running start.
He did it consistently, and so as a defensive coach, when you see the rules changing with target and hands and stuff like that, how does that affect you? Does that frustrate you in terms of
it? It's kind of a twofold question. I definitely see why they do it, and I definitely see why the NFL does it. I mean, if you've never been like to an NFL practice or an NFL game, and don't sit in the nosebleeds. I'm talking about like where you can actually like understand how hard those guys hit each other. I can definitely see why the rule changes are there. Personally, the Lunatic is extremely frustrating from a defense perspective, because the way that I grew up playing football, it was all about hitting people as hard as you can wherever you could. So it is frustrating at times, but it goes back to the way that you coach your guys now. You definitely got to put a lot of emphasis on hitting guys in the strike zone. I know tackling and having a certain style of tackle, that is going to be something that Dan Quinn is definitely going to input there in Dallas. The Seahawks kind of made it very popular that you can just YouTube the Seahawks tackling, and almost everybody utilizes it now. San Francisco was really good at it this past season. That'll be your only shout out right there, Lee Williams. Me saying anything about the 49ers, but you'll see a certain style of tackling. You'll see guys being taught to hit a moving target so that they don't get a penalty or get ejected. But it is frustrating. I think it's necessary to keep the players safe. So I am, as a defensive coach, I get frustrated by it all the time, because you want your guys to be physical. You want them to play extremely fast. And then when that yellow flag comes out, man, it is really, really frustrating.
Okay. I got a question.
Look, one of the best analogies I guess that I could put, you take a guy like Micah Parsons, or just really anybody, Randall Gregory or Keanu Neal, guys like literally getting hit by those guys is the equivalent of you just holding your hands up and let me hit you with a baseball bat. I mean, those guys are so freaking strong and violent with their delivery, that if they did hit a guy, in the wrong area, it definitely could be life threatening. So I don't take that for granted at all.
Okay. And Lee, I'm glad that's all you need to hear because that's all you're getting. But thank you for joining us on the Cowboys Zone. All right. Terry Rudd has a good question about violent hands techniques when they're being blocked. That's something you still utilize?
Yeah. So kind of twofold to kind of take Terry's question and then the lunatic's question and put them together. So, there's a lot of rules that are in place, but how do you keep the physicality of the game? Well, there's targeting rules, there's strike zone rules, there's contact rules, but the rules as far as engaging people and getting off blocks and being violent with striking with your hands, most definitely those are the things that you want to be able to teach and you want to get really, really good at. So violent hands is something, Terry, that I still teach and we believe in it. We'll go through a violent hand circuit to where everybody on the defense has to do certain drills to be able to disengage blocks. And it goes back to just creating that mentality. Yeah, I know I can't tell you to go blow up a receiver across the middle of the field the way we used to in football, but I can tell you this: when you're lined up out there and that guy comes at you to block you, then he should know right now that it's going to be a long night for me, because the way that guy just literally almost put his hands through my chest, I know that he's a violent person. So that's how you get your point across a lot of times without actually having to go and lay guys out.
Okay. And Marlon Nash, thank you for joining. Appreciate it.
What's up, Marlon?
My other guys from Mississippi, thank you for tuning in. All right, I got like two more questions for you, Pap, and then we'll let you go.
Okay.
First question: when you think about a defense, some defenses you got your star corner, and then we roll coverage based off of him. Some defenses you got your 3 technique, who's kind of your disruptor, and everybody else works off him. In the scheme that we expect Dan Quinn to do, who are those star guys, those disruptor guys, or positions? You don't have to say a certain player.
Okay.
What are those disruptor or star positions that we should look for as fans?
I think you go right down the middle when you're talking about being built in this scheme. So what I mean right down the middle is up front, it definitely starts with your nose guard or if he's going to be an under team, it's going to start with the nose guard. If he's going to be an over team, then it's going to start with the D tackle. It just depends on if he's going to be 4-3 over or 4-3 under. Now, once you've got to have that guy up front. Grady Jarrett was a prime example of it in Atlanta, where with Dan Quinn. They give him 6 foot on paper, but I'm telling you, he's 5'11". But he is as powerful a man as you'll meet, and he's able to play the run, but also be really, really good in certain pass rush situations or generating pass rush push. So you need that guy to be really good up front, and then you're going to go to that backer, that middle backer, your Bobby Wagners of the world, your Deion Joneses, your in Tampa, I know we talked a little bit about Tampa Bay, but Devin White, those type of guys right now. And hopefully, for us, whoever's playing Mike, that guy is going to have to be that, because he's got to be your every down backer. He's got to be your A or B gap fitter on the run, but he's also now got to be able to go drop to your hook. And if you can control the middle of the field in the NFL, then you've got a chance, because that's where a lot of the game is played, with your crossers and your digs and your over routes and things like that. So your Mike backer really has to be really good, or will. Once again, it goes back to who's the most important based off being an over or under defense. And then your middle field safety. And I don't know who it's going to be, but that guy, that Earl Thomas of the world, that's going to line up between the hashes, and that has to make sure that no ball's being caught deep across the middle, and he's rangy. He's rangy enough. I think Jaden Smith's going to do a really good job at it. But he's rangy enough that he can get outside to the numbers and be able to help those corners and those hook players out on the seam balls. That player is really important. And the biggest thing for that middle field guy, and a lot of people don't think about it, because you only see that guy roaming around and getting plays on the football in flight, is that guy's got to be a sure tackler. He's what we refer to as the eraser on the defense, which means that they caught something shallow and that guy broke, or all of a sudden, they ran the ball and it pops through. He's got to erase points off the board, which means that he's got to make every tackle he gets on track to make, because if he misses it, then you got points on the board. So that guy literally erases points off the scoreboard. So he's got to be a great tackler.
Okay. So Richard Woodard, thank you for joining. Always appreciate your support and your great questions. This one came right on time and kind of was leading to my last question. How do you feel our safeties will work out? Still kind of a soft spot, weak spot for this team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because now you got some guys now that can play multiple safety positions. You look at KZ. I know Keanu's listed as a wheel, but I'm telling you, don't be surprised if you see him playing some middle read stuff, kind of roaming right there into that dig area, that 14 to 16 yard area. And it all goes back, in my opinion, Richard, of how well can those guys understand this scheme and put themselves in positions to make plays, because hopefully what you're not going to see now is guys just chasing people all over the field. If it's going to be primarily a zone concept outside of, your blitzes where you have to run man coverage, now you're able to get vision on the quarterback, and now your safeties are able to play flight of the football and be able to cut routes and things like that. So, and please let me say these next words very gingerly, because they're two of the best to ever do it with Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas. But you don't necessarily have to have Pro Bowl safeties to be very good in this scheme.
That's a great statement, Pat. We talk about that.
You don't have to have those type of caliber guys to be KZ. Like I said, he came out of San Diego State, and all of a sudden he's showing up and he's making plays. I know Neil was a first round pick out of Florida, but you'll find guys like that now that all of a sudden you're looking up and you're like, dang, who's this guy? I don't even know him, and he's out there making plays. So the scheme goes a long way too.
Okay. Another great question from the Lunatic. And I'm sure you could probably answer this well, because you're a first-time defensive coordinator for your team. As someone coming in, implementing your system to a new team, when should anybody expect for the defense to kind of click and feel like they got it?
This may not be the answer that you guys want as fans, but it's going to be some growing pains in the preseason, of course. I think what you're going to see in the preseason, you won't see a lot of and nobody does in the preseason, but you won't see a lot of what you're going to see as mainstays that you'll recognize week 1 through 17 now, or 18 being a 17 game season. But what you will see is you'll see the core of what their coverage is going to be. Because they've got to go out and they've got to actually put it into live action. So if we're going to be a lot of one high, you're going to see that in the preseason. If for whatever reason, if it's going to be a split safety look, they're going to have to show that in the preseason and get guys really good at the base. So preseason is going to be some growing pains. And obviously you open up with the Super Bowl champs, and that's not what you want to hear either, but guys are going to be still working some kinks out early. I think that Dan Quinn is going to do a good job of managing that, of going into the game, not necessarily with the entire playbook, but let's narrow it down to these things that these guys know and they can go execute. I think Terry put it in the comments earlier, which is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just won a Super Bowl and played great defense with one of the simplest schemes that I've ever seen in the NFL. So, you look at it, you can play mistake-free football. You want to create small windows in your zone coverage, and you want guys playing together. If you look out and everybody's on the same page and they're tackling well, then I think they'll be able to get through the first few weeks. And now as guys get confident in it and they start adding to it, I think the defense has a chance to take off at that point. So to fully click, long way around it, I'm going to say it'll probably be somewhere around the start of the second quarter of the season. So around game 5 to where now you're seeing the blitz packages, you're seeing the sub packages, you're seeing Keanu O'Neal play the big nickel. You may see Jabril Cox actually going to the middle now and doing some things into that dig area, that middle read area too.
Okay, yeah, that's a great breakdown. All right, before we go, I got one more question, and let me say this before we close out. When you talk about Tampa Bay, everybody in their secondary is still in their rookie contracts. 2 of the guys are 3rd-round picks from Auburn, so you don't have to have guys who are all pros or 8-year players to put together a great secondary. You just need guys who fit the scheme and know what they're doing and play the scheme to the best of their ability.
Exactly. I went back and looked at it because everybody put so much emphasis on guys being ready right now. And, and of course you get it. Like you take, for instance, Byron Jones, right? Dallas had him and, a lot of people would have thrown him away from after the first season that he was with Dallas, and then he develops and all of a sudden he becomes really good. But as you start to go around the league and you start looking at it, I'm talking secondary here, in my opinion, since probably 2010, there's only been about 3 guys that's walked in from day one and like literally just established themselves as being that guy. That's Patrick Peterson. That's Jalen Ramsey and maybe, and I think the jury's still out, but maybe Denzel Ward, so everybody else has had some growing pains and everybody else has had to, to buy some time and get it. But those guys get paid a lot of money to play, but the coaches get paid a lot of money as well to go develop these guys. So, don't necessarily throw a guy away right away. Be patient with some guys that have some ability. And if you give them a little bit of time, I think you'll see it.
Yeah. And great point, DJ Dog. You talk about Dean and Whitehead. I think Jamel Dean, I know Jamel Dean from Auburn. I think he's just now entering his 3rd year. And I think Whitehead is the safety, and he may be entering his 4th year. So
yeah,
those young guys are doing it in Tampa. And then,
and they're not mainstream names, I mean, outside of getting into the playoffs this year, people they weren't going out and buying those jerseys if you didn't live in Tampa.
Right. Exactly. All right. So one last thing before we go, and Riker, we will make sure to get his information at the end. Let me put a chart up here real quick. And me and you talked about this a little bit before the show. So we look at these 2 formations. We got the Seattle defense, which we expect to run it, the 4-3 under. And then underneath it, we got the 3-4 under. And Lee, you get another Niners reference. When you look at these 2 things, they look pretty similar in terms of where they are and how they play. The only real difference is that 9 is standing up and the Leo is down.
Correct.
Can you, because I know you're going to run a 3-4 this year. Are you running a 3-4 under?
So our 3-4 looks exactly, we don't call it a 3-4 under. We base out of 3-4 and ours has movement in it. Okay. So for instance, as we look into that bottom diagram, number 91, I think there, who's playing a 4-eye. 4. Yep. So if we wanted to bring our weak side linebacker, so let's say we wanted to bring number 51 right here. So we would take number 91 and we would stun him to the outside shoulder of the tackle.
And
we would take the nose. Yep. We would take the nose and stun him to, as we're looking at the picture, the left A gap. And we would take the other 4-eye and we'll stun him to the guard. And we would bring number 51, that 9, off the edge. So basically we lined up in a 3-4 defense. And on the snap of the ball, we went right back to your top diagram.
Okay.
So that's all it is. As you look at 3-4s, if you're bringing a 4th rusher, you're getting back to 4-3 principles at some point. So the reason that I prefer the 3-4 is it allows me not to just always bring that Leo like the top diagram. Yeah. Unless, they could drop the Leo in some fire zones. But I can now bring the 9, the weak side. I can bring the 9 from the strong side, or we can mix in number 52 and number 57 there as the backers that will replace and still give us a 4-3 principle as well. I think that you may see more of this 3-4 look than what people are originally thinking, just because of the movements and the ability to confuse offenses a little bit easier than just lining up and saying, okay, here's your shade, here's your 3, here's your 5. I think that you'll be able to do a little bit more out of it. So I think they'll utilize a good bit of that 3-4.
Okay, and I'm glad you said that. That's the reason I put this up. I wanted people to see, like, when you look at this diagram, those two front sevens look almost identical, except for the guy standing up on the end.
Right.
Now, I guess my follow-up question to you on this is, there's a lot of talk about defensive line in terms of we need a big guy up front to run a 3-4. Can you talk about, do you need a guy that's 335, 340 as your nose to be able to run that 3-4 the way you want to?
No, I don't think you need that guy. I think that's in my terminology, that's an old school way of thinking.
Thank you.
I think that's when you start talking about guys like Tony Saragusa and those guys that just are going to plug up the A gaps and do those type of things. But now you think about it, the NFL is so pass heavy now. What is a 300-pounder going to get you when Patrick Mahomes is running all around the field, or they're out here and they're running misdirection, and you've got zone read with an RPO bubble, and people are throwing zone read with glances now. So where does that 300 pounds benefit you at that standpoint? So having a nose that's explosive enough to be able to still be really solid on the run, but you want a guy that can also move down the line of scrimmage and be able to stunt and give different looks as well.
Okay. I got one more question. I'm done, I promise.
No, go for it, man.
Right at 2 hours.
I'm taking off tomorrow.
So everybody in the comments calls me the special teams guy because I always talk about the importance of special teams.
Oh, it's crucial.
Elaborate a little bit on that. Just a little.
So Micah Parsons is fine. All right, Micah Parsons is fine. He's first round. Kevin Joseph was second round, right?
Yep.
He's going to be on special teams. He is going to be on special. He has to be. He has to be on special teams. You think about it. There's so much emphasis put in NFL. Every team, all 32 of them, I guarantee you, when they showed up to their first meeting, the first thing they told them was, you better become best friends with our special teams coordinator. Because if you aren't lining up and you aren't our starting quarterback or you aren't our starting X receiver, you better be on special teams. That's the only way you're going to make this team. It's a 53-man roster.
Yep. So,
if all your starters aren't playing special teams, who else is going to do it? So, you're going to have certain guys that won't. A lot of times those are your veteran players, but those guys that were drafted, and I feel safe saying every single one of them, Micah Parsons, Kelvin Joseph, Wright, Jabril Cox, like all those guys are about to have such a huge role on special teams. You look up and, your starting safety is going to be running down on kickoff, and your starting corner is going to be a corner on punt return. He may be a gunner on the punt team. One of the coolest things that I saw was, Patrick Surtain, Patrick Surtain Jr., who I wish we'd gotten, but he played every defensive snap, I think, for Alabama, and he's still covering kicks, so if you're going to be, that type of player and you're not playing quarterback, you definitely got to have a role on special teams.
Okay. Now, I want to lead into that to this question, because we all have our pet cats. There are certain guys who we've all felt like haven't gotten their shot to show what they can do. But we got a bunch of young guys who are coming in at certain positions, wide receiver, safety, corner, 5th, 6th round picks that are going to be heavily involved in the special teams. So who would you give a better chance to if it came down to that spot? A 4th-year guy who we're still going off potential, or a 6th round guy who's going to be heavy on special teams?
I would say the 6th round guy. Traditionally, I think that the thing that may help that 4th-year guy right now is that when the staffs change, dynamics change, and you kind of know this is just people. If that 4th-year guy, for whatever reason, if him and the special teams coordinator, they just didn't see eye to eye and he didn't trust him, and maybe he walked into a meeting with a Powerade when they weren't supposed to have anything in the meeting room, and that just kind of put him in the doghouse for a while. It was hard to get out of that. So maybe he was trying to earn his way. He just didn't because of the dynamics of it. So you get a new coaching staff, and now maybe he gets a fresh start. Now, with that fresh start, he's got to go out and win it because there's no charity in the NFL. If you aren't the best player, then 90% of the time you're not going to make it. The other 10% is because they gave you a lot of money and they got to buy their time to try to make sure their investment pays off.
You pretty much parroted what me and Lambo talk about.
Reggie Robinson.
I didn't want to put names on it.
I knew who you was talking about already. Reggie Robinson. I hope he makes the team.
Coach Webster. I talk about this all the time. This is in my opinion the makeup of an NFL roster. You got your starters, you got your proven backups, you got your high draft picks who a coach is going to give a year to check out, and then you got the special teamers. Is there another category that I'm missing? Because in my opinion, if you don't fit one of these four, you're pretty much not going to be on the team.
No, those are the four, and I'm making sure I'm with it. But no, those are the four. I mean, that's going to be an NFL roster.
And you brought up one more, the guy who's making too much money to get cut.
Yeah, and he'll be a lot of teams they'll still plug him in as a starter just because of the fan base and the owner may have been the owner's selection or whatever it may be and all the politics that play in it. But from that dynamic, if you'll go back to that chart one more time, I think that when you start talking about guys that actually hit the field, obviously one, I would go one, and then I would put special teams as the next most important.
Wow. Hold on. Say that again so I can use that as a soundbite.
I will put the starting players as the most important, and then your special teams come right after that. Your backups, if you have a backup guy that's a really good backup, but he's not on, especially the big four units, he's not nearly as important as that guy that's running down on kickoff, covering punts, punt return, and kickoff return. So a backup Mike Backer, which he's probably not going to be that if he's not playing special teams, but he's not nearly as important as those special teams guys.
I just want to let that simmer in the atmosphere for a minute. Because people destroy me when I tell them this, and they just think I'm being a fan for certain players. But special teams are extremely important.
They are.
We haven't had this conversation before either.
Yeah.
Don't think I put him up to saying this. I didn't expect you to say special teams would be number 2, though. I had it at 4. So yeah, I got to reanalyze my thoughts on special teams now. I gotta push it even harder.
Well, you think about it. Your starters. Let's say you go 3 and out. Your starter plays down 1, 2, and 3, and then special teams get on the field. Backup ain't even seen action yet.
That's a good point. Point. There are a couple of players I throw out there all the time. I don't want to say the names because then the comments will start jumping again. But there are a bunch of guys I keep saying they don't play special teams and they're considered backups. These young guys are going to take their spots. So I think that's a good closing point. So
one quick question, which is completely off topic, but I was curious about it. Yesterday in the meeting, Dan Quinn was stressing the point of note taking to the defensive guys.
Yeah.
And he ended up playing a Run DMC song. And then afterwards, he told them to all write down as much as they could remember, every word they could remember. Did he do that at Atlanta?
Yeah. Not that particular scenario per se, but there were always ways of challenging guys on the way that they learn and to be more effective pros. So some of the things they did in Atlanta was he brought in guys that I can't remember what the exact title was, but teaching guys how to breathe better. Because you get tired, and it was, to the extent of whatever research has been done. If you just close your eyes, take a deep breath and breathe in and out for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever it may be, supposedly it refocuses your attention again, and you can go back into, your study or your note taking and things like that. But yeah, so, these guys like that, they're professional athletes now. And part of being a pro is that, like note taking. I know they thought, well, you come out of college, I don't have to take notes anymore. And they do. They give you everything on an iPad. You got your install, you can study and you can swipe. But like they say, you know, if you see it, write it down. And if you've written it down once, you take a day and you go back and you write it down again, because at some point, what you saw on the iPad and what you wrote down in your notes, you're going to have one opportunity, just one, to go execute that thing. And that one opportunity, either you take it and it pays off, and everything goes back to money in the NFL. It pays off, and it gets you $3 million. Or guess what? I was slow. I didn't recognize it. I didn't dissect it good enough. And I don't even make a roster because of that one play. So it's really crucial. So yeah, just things like that. That's funny. Music, I think, is something that you'll see as well. It'll play a big part in a lot of what those guys do meeting wise. You know, in Atlanta during that time, he did a lot of things as far as trying to get guys into the meeting rooms early. Now, Dan Quinn has never broken any NFL rules or regulations. Okay. So, but you know, the NFL, it makes you, like, if a meeting was supposed to start at 7:30 and you've got that on paper, it starts at 7:30. If the meeting ends at 7:50, it's over. It doesn't matter if the coach still wants to coach more. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's not done. When that clock hits 7:50, those guys have to go. You cannot keep them there beyond that meeting time. Now, they can come back and ask questions and you make yourself available, but that's their job. And when you set your meeting for 20 minutes, that's all you get. So, you know, you try to find creative ways, you know, so they put basketball goals into the special teams and the team meeting room, because guys will come in there, they go in there 10 minutes early, and they're in there just shooting the basketball around. And your coaches, like, you can't approach them, you can't ask them anything, but that gives you 10 more minutes for a guy to walk in and see you and ask you questions before that meeting starts.
So the coaches can't approach the players?
No.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Yeah, there's so many rules when it comes to those type of things. Now, you can make yourself available, but from a professional standpoint, if they tell you that, all right, this is your day and these are the places you have to be at these times, then you have to be there. So that meeting that started at 7, you walk in at 7:01, that's $2,000. Not because I want to, but because the NFLPA says that's what it is. And all the fine money goes to the NFLPA, from my understanding, and things like that anyway. So at 7:01, that guy gets a fine no matter what. But also in that same regard, when your meeting ends at 7:50, it's over at 7:50. Now, you're in your office, you sit in there, and a guy voluntarily tells, you know, hey, coach, I got some more questions. Yeah, you can talk to guys and you can get them better as much as you want, but you can't force guys to stay beyond the times and the structure of what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, that's awesome. I did hear a lot about him trying to create interesting ways to keep people in these meetings, you know, focused and stuff. So
that Run DMC thing, Lambo, that's good. And I'm sure he has some reasons behind it. You know, those are kind of some of the things, man, that DQ does that players relate to. You know what I mean? You know, he's not a young guy per se, but he's definitely not that old school of, hey, I don't want to hear any music, I don't want to hear any cursing. You know, heck, whatever is mainstream that the guys want to listen to, he's going to make sure that, or at least he doesn't have that leeway now, you know, being a coordinator, but as a head coach, it was all about the players' playlist and music.
Even the sneakers, I would look at Dan Quinn and I would think, man, this guy's going to have some Air Monarchs on. He comes out there with the Retro 11s. I'm like, okay. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
All right, Coach, we can keep you here all night. Our viewers have remained very high and very steady this whole time. So thank all of you guys who've been rocking with us the entire time. Great questions, great comments, great dialogue. Coach, before we let you go, had a couple of people asking how they can follow you because you really made a bunch of new fans.
Yeah, so
let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, can I type in the comments down here? Am I?
I don't think you have the admin rights to type in the comments.
Okay, so my Twitter is Coach_Webster2. Very simple. At Coach_Webster2.
That's what?
Underscore Webster.
Is that Twitter?
Yeah, that's my Twitter.
Okay, I got you.
And then my Facebook is just Jonathan Pap Webster. Yeah, you guys follow on Twitter, man. I'll definitely follow you back. And look, man, I've enjoyed it. I definitely hope that I can get back with you two guys at some point, and we can get going again, especially once we have some evidence of what they're doing. You know, that's going to be the interesting thing to see where guys are. I know everything right now is speculation, but where guys are, what positions, you know, who's in what positions and so forth and so on. So definitely love to get back on here. And look, if I ever hire anybody, man, Chris Booth, no doubt. Hey, Chris was my position coach in high school, so I got nothing but high regard for him. He was a year younger than me, and he was coaching me as a player. So I got definitely high regard for Chris Booth in that aspect, man. So I hire you in a heartbeat, Chris.
Yeah, and Richard Woodard, he's definitely a Cowboy fan. One of the reasons we became friends in high school is because we were probably the two biggest Cowboy fans on the team at the time.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And then, you know, it was supposed to just be me and Marcus for a long time. And then we had some Cowboy impersonators that were undercover 49er fans that joined the group. But I think they're Cowboy fans at heart. I know Booth is a Cowboy fan, so that's why we connected so well.
Yeah. I had this thought while we were doing the show, and I want to put it out there in the atmosphere, and hopefully you will say you will do it. I want to do something during the season called Coach's Corner, where we put up an all 22 of a player or two a couple times a year, not every week. And hopefully we can get you to come back and kind of break down.
Oh man, I love to do that. You know, that's done deal. You tell me what you got and when you got it, brother, and I'm there. That's the wheelhouse I live in. So no doubt about it.
So yeah, we'll definitely try to make sure it's positive plays so we don't put down any of the players or the coaches. So
yeah.
Hopefully they get a lot of turnovers, and we can do that quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you guys are definitely going to be impressed, man. Hopefully it all works out and they play well. But I'm telling you, that culture, that brotherhood that Dan Quinn is going to create in Dallas is going to be something that I don't think that they've had there in a long time. I really think you're going to get back to seeing the Cowboys of old, to where it looked like those guys were having fun playing football and not just trying to figure it out.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Man, great information. I've been sitting there taking notes the whole time. This is honestly one of my favorite shows that we've ever done, and I could tell by the views and the comments that the fan base loved it as well.
Yeah. Hey, make sure y'all like and share, man. This is big. I mean, you don't get a lot of like true talks like this. You know, everybody wants to be really generic or over opinionated in my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I mean, when you have guys that have knowledge and the questions are legit, and you can be yourself in this environment, like that's huge, man. So you guys like, share, subscribe. Make sure you tell all y'all got like 2,000 Facebook and Twitter followers. Like, make sure we put it out there, man. Like, the world needs to know about this show, man. These guys are doing a great job.
Thank you, Coach Webster. I definitely appreciate that. All right, Lambo, before we go, let the people know where they can find you at.
Yes, as always, it'll be Cowboys Y'all on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Cowboys Y'all 88 on Instagram. 88 fan my whole life. And Michael Irvin, baby. Yes. But yeah, that's it.
All right, guys. You can find me on Facebook, Bluff City Cowboys, YouTube, Bluff City Cowboys. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell. Also find me on Twitter at Bluff Cowboys. And we'll be back next week, 7:30 Central Standard Time, for another episode of the Cowboy Zone. We'll be digging deeper in the training camp. I think Hard Knocks may start next week, so we may have some Hard Knocks talk as well. We got the Steelers coming up, first game, August 6th, I believe. So we may start on our breakdowns of that game. We got a lot of guys coming in. I think we got the Star Boys podcast coming in at some point. We're going to get Riker to come in with us as well. You see her in the comments. She makes a lot of knowledgeable and entertaining comments. So we're looking forward to seeing what she says in front of the camera. Guys, thank you for the love you're giving us in the comments. Definitely appreciate that. And I think that's pretty much it. So again, make sure you follow us. Make sure you continue to support us. I'm Marcus, this Lambo, and we are out. Guys, have a good night.